Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I said I would do this. I've had taken on a new position at my regular everyday job, so kind of got tied up with that and homework, etc. But I'm here, so one, I'm gonna stop telling you a date when to expect videos because obviously I can't like plan anything specific like that. Uh, but anyway, so I had mentioned in my last video I was going to do the topic of when the gods go quiet, kind of how we address that and what it's all about. So that's what we're doing today. Um, it kind of came about. I was looking for different topic ideas. I was talking with a friend of mine from my spiritual group and from my tribe, and she mentioned how we do see a lot of people, especially newer people, uh, come in wondering about why such and such deity suddenly got quiet when they had felt their presence and maybe even heard them, and then suddenly there's nothing, or they just can't feel it. So, this is actually really common. And a lot of people, again, especially when they're newer to practicing of any kind, um, they kind of get worried about it. We've had it drilled in our heads from other faiths that, God is always watching, God is always with you. To an extent, that is true. But there's times that they're not going to be present, or they're not going to be actively present, and they're not going to always let you know if they're present, and sometimes they aren't. They're other places doing other things. But that's not a bad thing, and a lot of times it's really nothing to do with anyone being mad at you. It's one thing we hear a lot, again, especially from people who are new to practicing. um, just like, oh, especially in Locating community, because we do tend to be a little more personal with him than some others do with their deities. But still, in any way, when a deity or deities suddenly gets quiet, where the person has been used to them being there, a lot of people's first reaction is, are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? A lot of times that's not the case. Most of the time, that's not the case. So I just want to discuss kind of what possibilities there are for why that might be happening, and also kind of how to deal with it. So let's kind of dive into that. One of the things, excuse me, that people don't often realize is in every mythology, every religion, even Christianity, there is the thing with gods having to have rest. They are, even if your past deities are considered immortal, unable to die, etc., they still need rest. They still need food. They still need nourishment. That's as far as their stories go. Uh, even Christianity, in the story of creation, on the seventh day, God rested. So it's not um, unheard of or too far fetched of an idea to believe that maybe they just need to take a break and they're just taking a rest. We tell ourselves as people all the time, and each other, pick your battles. Don't expend too much energy on things that ultimately don't matter in the long run. If it's not, we constantly remind people of that. You need your rest. So then, if you think of it from the perspective of deity, they've got a lot of people they're taking care of. They've got a lot of things that they are doing, so they will need some rest. All the stories mention them sleeping and resting and needing rest and food. Um, so it could simply be they are just resting. You think of if we need rest with our daily lives and the things that we have going on and the people in our lives, and then they, as deity, gods, are having a world full of people and things to take care of. So they've got even more on their plate than we do. Yeah, they can handle it better. They are higher than us as far as that goes. But they may just need a rest. Um, you know, and another part of that is picking your battles as far as how important it is. If you are asking for, let's say a love issue, and this person over here is asking about, needed money to pay their bills. Well, if you truly believe that your deity cares about their people, they're going to be wanting to look for the one that needs it to survive. There's going to be a level of importance, just like we would for our own lives. You have to remember, even though they're not human, um, they are human like, in the sense that they have these feelings and emotions and priorities. And some things are just not going to be top of the list. Again, that's not a bad thing. That's just how it is. It's kind of like, you're put on hold for a moment while they take care of other stuff. If you're texting your friends and you get busy and have to go do something real quick, you just kind of, be right back, put down the text, put down your phone, go do what you got to do, and you'll come back to them later. That's kind of the same thing. Uh, another thing that we look at is maybe not the gods themselves are busy, um, but rather there's a lesson for us to be learning. Um, and sometimes it's just sink or swim. So, which is always fun. So sometimes when we are left alone or think we've been left alone by our gods, and they're not talking to us. It could be a lesson learned. It could be a redirection that we're needing to take. Sometimes it may be that your patron deity is not the one to handle this issue, and they're wanting you to go elsewhere instead of just them. Sometimes it is a matter of we're not helping you right now. You've got a lesson to learn from this. Then we'll come back to it. Or if you learn your lesson and you do get where they want you to be, then you'll get the thing without them having to do anything. Um, they're showing you like they're not needed. It's kind of like a good parent. Yes, we want to take care of our children. Yes, we want to be there and help them. We hold their hands when they're little, when they cross the street. Then when they get a little older, we literally hand them money and say, hey, walk over to the store and get me a gallon of milk. But we have to let go of them a little at a time for them to learn that. And it's the same with the deities and us. There are sometimes they can't hold our hand for us to learn a lesson. If we're going to learn and we're going to grow, we have to do it without them. So that's another one of the reasons they might sometimes get quiet. Sometimes, again, they're not even actually gone, they're just watching. the same way you would watch the kid walk across the street for the first time, or watch them get on the school bus by themselves, watch from the window as they're standing at the bus stop. Sometimes that's it. We're still there watching through the window, so if anything happens, we can take care of it. But the kid is there by themselves at the bus stop, and that's the same way with the deities. Sometimes they're watching, they're just not interfering unless something happens and we need it. So that's another reason. Another one, and I've had this one happen quite a few times myself, it's very common, is we get kind of wrapped up in our own heads a lot as people. We, excuse me, we tend to get wrapped up with our own thoughts, with our own jobs, our families. We have so many things going on. And sometimes it's not necessarily that the gods have gone quiet, but we simply cannot hear. We have got so much going on in our heads that that's where our focus is, and we have to focus harder to hear them. I've had that happen so many times. I cannot even tell you. Yeah, I can hear Loki laughing now. Um, and my brother, honestly, he's laughing too if he hears this, I'm sure. So, there'll be cases where we'll get wrapped up. Me personally, I know I will. We'll get wrapped up in things that are just hounding us, and we don't stop to listen. Or if we do, we've constantly got this pull, distraction. So it's kind of like if you put your hands over your ears and they're talking to you, but it's muffled and you can't tell if it's them and their voices are quiet and you can't hear, or if it's just like the sound of the wind through your freaking hands. Same thing, it's just all mental, emotional. And sometimes that's what needs addressed. So, um, real quick, I know a lot of people, especially in locating community, we tend to have like a lot of us with like some form of neurodivergence. Again, ADHD, people on the autism spectrum, anxiety. We've got people who have a lot of mental, I hate the word disorder, but it's what it is. We have these mental disorders or emotional disorders that do tend to clog us as it is just general life. So in times of high stress or high emotion, those get amplified. Any of us who have these disorders know that. So then it shouldn't be a surprise if we are having a hard time and we're stressed or emotional and we can't hear or focus on the gods, because we already know that we have a hard time doing that in regular mundane life when we are at that level of emotion and thought tangents. So, kind of, and it's not anything on you. It's not anything on us as people. It's just how our brains work. So for some of us, we have to try a little harder. Uh, so just remember that it's not necessarily always, again, my key point here is don't ever think that they are mad at you if they're quiet, if they disappear for a while. Um, I know it's hard not to think that. I had Loki disappeared on me completely for probably about 2 months solid with nothing. I couldn't even, like, meditate and connect, and then when it comes back, it was like, "Oh, well, there was these other people you talked to while I was away, and it was helpful, wasn't it?" Things like that. But Then there were times that he was gone, or I thought he was gone, and I spent a few months in a really deep depression. And I got more depressed because I thought Loki left me. But really, I was sitting outside one night and actually just made myself sit quietly and enjoy the quiet and the sounds of nature. And when I sat quietly, I finally heard. You ready to listen now? Now that you're not distracted? And so that is the thing that happens. We get ourselves distracted. We get our own minds and thoughts cluttered and emotions cluttered. And it's not that they're gone, we just can't hear them. Again, it's not like anything bad. They're not mad at us. Like one thing you need to know, and especially those of us who work with Loki and the Jotun and really pretty much any of the Norse deities, if they're mad, they're gonna let you know. There's not gonna be a question about it. So if you're having to stop and go, do you think they're mad at me? Then probably not. I mean, sometimes some are more subtle, but for the most part, if they're actually mad at you, you're gonna know. It's not gonna be maybe. It's gonna be, oh shit, I fucked up. So get that part out of your head. So, what do we do when they're quiet? How do we figure out what's going on and address it? So, um, one, stop and ask yourself, if there is a reason that you may be blocked or clouded instead of, being quiet and able to listen. Especially, if it's the case, in case it is one of those, we are cluttered. I'm cluttered. I can't hear. I can't feel because of my own clutter. So start there. Make sure, make sure you are at a point where you can listen, where you can hear. So to do that, there's different things. Stay grounded, get grounded and centered if you're not already. Um, Pray, meditate, make offerings, that kind of thing. Make sure that on your part, you are doing your part to keep that communication flow open. Again, a lot of people want to talk about we don't pray. Yes, we do. Okay. Even in the lore, in the Eddas, in the prose Edda, they tell us this deity, this daughter goddess, is good to pray to for this thing. So if they're going to actually say that, then yeah, we prayed. Um, people look at prayer, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to address this because it comes up quite a bit. People look at prayer as if it is a Christian only thing. It is not. Prayer is literally in almost every religion around the world. Just because it was given the Christian context and taken taken over and overly used by them does not mean it belongs to them. Prayer is simply talking and communing with your God. If you are asking them for help with something, you are praying. If you are talking to them and thanking them for something, you are praying. That is what it is communion with your deity. Doesn't matter how you spin it. So yes, that is prayer. And don't let anyone tell you how to pray. If you are still breaking away from other paths, or you just like the way they did it, there is no problem if someone does want to get on their knees, because we hear it all the time. Oh, we don't bow on our knees. You're not groveling. Being on your knees is a sign of respect. It is kneeling with respect. It's not groveling. So shut the hell up. Sorry, had to get that out. So, if you want to pray, pray. Pray however it is comfortable for you. Because another part of the communication is some people pray and communicate in here differently than others. So you have to find what works for you to make sure that that communication is staying open and you're still able to receive it. If other people's way isn't working, try it your way. Try what you're comfortable with. Ask them how they want you to do it. And the same with offerings. So that's the first thing. Like I said, I'm sorry, I had to get that out. It irks me. It's So when we are clouded, when we think they are quiet or they might have left us for whatever reason, ask yourself if there's a reason you may just not be able to hear at the moment, that you may be clouded. Um, and, just in case, if, you may be able to sit down if you're honest with yourself and go, oh, yeah, that's a thing I've been doing. And, just get right back into it. Get rid of it and go. And then there's other times that you may not know that or realize that that's what you're doing. And that's why like I said, just do the grounding, center, pray, do your part to stay open to communication and see. Try it out for a couple of weeks before you freak out. Sometimes it takes time. The next thing is, if that's not the case, that, yeah, you're pretty clear headed. So that's not the issue. Then you want to look at um, asking yourself if there's any lesson that you could be learning from this. I mean, you could ask them, and sometimes they will say, yeah, now that you're listening, you understand, I'll teach you. But a lot of times, if they've already gotten to the point they're quiet, then it's one that they want you to learn on your own. And if that is the case, then, step back. Step back, ask yourself, is there a lesson I can be learning from this situation that's kidding me? Is there lessons I should be learning that I'm just not paying attention to around me? I know we're looking at the fact that they're not here, but you kind of have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Is there an area I am needing to work on and learn from that maybe they want me to handle on my own? Or that maybe they want me to start addressing and at least acknowledge it. Because a lot of times we'll have these issues and lessons that we just don't even want to acknowledge. So I need to be quiet. So, ask yourself, is there any lessons I may be overlooking? That, think about the things they have said when they were around, or the nudges and feelings you got about certain issues when they were more present and active, and they're not now. And see if those are still issues, because it could be something they hinted at when they were here and you weren't getting it. And they just kind of were like, okay, let me know when you're ready. I've had that happen before too. Like everything I'm saying here, this is all UPG, my views, my experience. So don't think I'm putting words in the mouths of the gods. I'm saying these are things that have happened with me and other people I know. So then the next thing, if you're trying to figure this out and you still can't, then you can always approach and ask. But again, if we're dealing with them being quiet, it may be going to a different deity that is more in line with what you're wondering about. Or one of my things I like to do is get a reading from someone else. I don't like to read for myself. I don't suggest other people do it very frequently either. Especially in those emotional cases like that, because we do tend to put our own emotions and thoughts into our readings, whether we want to admit it or not, we do. So, in a case like that, you can always go for a reading, or even not necessarily a reading, but just a talk with people who know you very well spiritually, people who know your life situation. I wouldn't just ask a random Facebook group kind of thing. I mean, yes, it's good to ask questions in a public format so you can get different opinions. That's great. But when it comes to like your own personal what's going on here thing, it is better to reach out to people who know you very well. Um, who can tell you, well, there is this little thing that you've been hung up on for a while, and I don't know if you noticed. They can pinpoint people who are around you more and um, talk to you a lot more, people who you interact with a lot more. They're going to know more than the general public about what's going on with you and your situation. If you don't have people that are close like that, then yeah, go ahead and try to get a reading from someone. Sometimes I'll do blind readings if I think I have an idea of what it may be. Like I think this issue isn't a problem. It's you know problem A is what I think I need to be working on right now. Is that true or not? And then go to someone and just not even tell them what the question is, other than, am I right about what I'm thinking right now? That way, there's no opinions involved, just the reading. So that's another way to kind of get a clue as to what might be happening in your case. Again, sometimes it may just be that it's time to change deity. Um, I know people don't like to talk about that because we do cling very tightly to our patrons. And at some point, I do believe that most people find the one that's like, that is their patron for life. That is who they're going to be with. That is the end of it. But until we hit that point, we'll go through different people or people, different ones we work with, different deities, and we'll go through this chain of changing up and going to others until we get that one that is our patron who has called us, so to speak. So it could be that. Again, that's why it's important to kind of get readings and, kind of be open to communication. And then the next thing would be to just follow up with it. Follow up with whatever you're working on. If you are, you're doing your prayers and you're keeping your communication open, you're continuing your offerings and communicate. You are trying to communicate again, even if they're not. Again, sometimes they're just busy. They want to know you still love them, right? So, if you're doing that, you're staying grounded. You've given everything the thoughts. Um, whether you figured it out completely or not, once you know what's going on, then you follow up with it later. Give it a couple weeks, couple months, feel it out, and then be like, okay, so where am I at with this issue now? Um, how do I need to go forward? Am I ready for you to come back? Then you start talking with them about the issue at hand as well. You get further into it. Just keep that follow up, keep the flow, because it could be, okay, now you've made this step, so now you got another one. It could be a step ladder issue. You just never know, but you have to keep checking back in with yourself and with them and whatever. Again, it's work. It's called spiritual work for a reason. It's not just, hi, here's your plate of chocolate, and be done. That's not spiritual work. So there's always going to be follow up. You're going to have to continue going working. And then again, the biggest thing is trust them. Whatever's going on, whether it is a life lesson for you, or they're just tired, or they're dealing with other things in the world, trust them. Because a lot of times, again, people don't like to talk about it because it sounds too Christianized. But a lot of times there is a question of faith. You know, if you and it's not a matter of, oh, you must have faith in me, like some people try to put it. It's really more a question of faith, as in, if you have a leader and you are going, if, say, into battle of some kind, it's a lot of you guys want to try to put the warrior spin on everything. Um, but you're not going to go into battle with a leader you don't have faith in. And at the same time, a good leader is not going to want to have people in this group that doesn't have faith in it, because you need that shared respect to get through it. You need that level of trust. So, when people think about faith is just a larger form of trust. So don't let it weigh you down when you hear that word. If you are having issues with deity disappearing or being quiet, have faith, which just means trust them. Trust that they know what they're doing. Because if you really think they don't know what they're doing, or you think you don't have the ability to follow, if there's not that trust and faith in them and yourself, it's not going to play out. It's not going to work out. You're never going to grow. So there does have to be a certain level of faith and trust involved for you to move forward. And to get the information you need, trust them to show back up. Trust that they will do what is needed. So yeah, have faith. That's really more important than people like to say it is. Again, the words themselves do not belong to any particular religion. So have faith. Trust them. I don't think you can wonder, you can question. It is totally okay to do that. I mean, think about when how Balder was having all his dreams, and what Odin went out to find out what they were about. He went and asked, dead witch, brings her back to life long enough to answer questions. Much as I hate to say it, it takes a certain level of trust to go wake up a dead witch that you don't even know whether or not you get along with them, to ask them questions about the sanity and safety of your son. It takes a lot of faith and trust. Even if you can trust and be cautious. It's true. But for the most part, gods aren't going to do that to us. We don't have the same level of issues they do in that regard. We're not going to go waking up Angrboda or any other. We're not practicing necromancy and asking dead, well, we shouldn't be asking these dead people to just like literally rise up and answer our questions. There's a good topic for later. I mean, we can ask them, but again, the main thing is we don't have that kind of issues to deal with, so we should probably trust them that they can handle our mundane shit. They're handling the world. They are handling, there's wars going on. There's people. It's just because it stopped being in the news doesn't mean it's not still happening. We have states here in the US that are constantly going after the LGBTQ community. We've got, race issues in various places against, still. So, there's a lot going on in the world that's often a little more important to the powers that be, as in the deity, not government, that, they're more important than whether or not I have a job right now, or, um, I have this love that I want, or I get through school. There are a lot of issues that they really are kind of like, again, like a parent, you're big enough to do that by yourself. So trust them to come back, trust them to eventually help and get your point across, but also trust them to know what you need. And sometimes what you need is not them. So, that's the other thing. And again, throughout the whole process, try to stay grounded, try to stay clear-headed, keep up your prayers and offerings. I'm always going to say that. Yeah, I know I'm slacking. He likes to talk. But yeah, you have to keep up that communication. If you as a person have a friend that you talk to all the time and they just literally never speak to you, eventually you get tired of that. So it's kind of the same process. But also, again, it's a matter of respect, because even though we don't do the groveling, bow down type of worship, they still deserve respect. They're still higher beings than us. They are still our gods. If they didn't deserve respect and offering and prayer and worship, you wouldn't even be following them. Don't lie. Why would you even follow them if you didn't think they were deserving of that? Something to ponder. So anyway, the point being, and then the whole thing, because I talk a lot and sometimes in circles, it's just when the gods seem to be quiet. As a summary, first make sure you're clear-headed, grounded, centered, and keeping your side of communication open and open to receiving, not just then, ask questions, check and see if there's a lesson that needs learned, maybe get a reading if you need to, follow up with whatever you think you learn or think you've learned from the situation, follow up with them, and trust and have faith. They're always going to come back in one way or another, or they'll send you someone else if it is one of those times to just change deity. So that's this video. Again, I'm not saying when, because obviously my schedule doesn't allow me to know when I'm going to do things. So I do know the next video I'm going to be doing a general reading, probably either, later today or tomorrow, not sure. That I can do. But the next actual talking lecture video will be the Faces of Loki, our next face there. I'm not sure which one. I tend to let him tell me right before I do it. Or not right before, but he'll tell me which one out of the 2 or 3 that I have in mind. So, hope you enjoyed. Hope it was helpful. I know sometimes I ramble, but it's fun. And then tune in again later today or tomorrow, and I will be posting another general reading. I'm going to try at least once a week to do that, at the very least. So, you all have a great day. And keep having the faith, all right? Bye-bye.